I'm a Tapas learner. Of course, I learn everything through projects. Hi, I am a Tapas learner. Of course, I can play games with my teachers. I'm a Tapas learner. Of course, I don't like free periods. I'm a Tapas student. Of course, we plan our own events. I'm a Tapas learner. And of course, I love to come to school. I'm a Tapas learner. And of course, I don't have exams. I'm a Tapas learner. Of course, we go to exciting places.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second session of Tapas Project Shala. This is going to be a beautiful session, and I am Preethi Vickram. I'm your host for today, and we are in conversation with Sue Egersdroff. I hope I got that right, Sue. It's a pleasure having you here. Sue is fanatical, and this is what her LinkedIn profile says. She is fanatical about early childhood education, but she is the founder of Ready Generations, and I think this is a fabulous initiative, and we are going to learn all about it going forward. But Sue, thank you so much for making the time, and a warm welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be with you all. And I have to say, over here in the UK, in Liverpool, it is nearly lunchtime. It is raining and it is very, very cold. So I'm more than happy to be with you, sharing something warm and joyous.
Oh, that's lovely. And we are having a very strong heat wave right now at the moment, and I'm extremely hot. Quite different. Oh, yeah. So I know that you're fanatical about really young children, but you've also done great work with really old people. So can you tell me what this is and where this idea came from? And I can share the presentation and we can begin with that.
Okay, so if I just introduce myself and just tell you a little bit about what I'm going to talk about with you today. I have been an early years educator and school leadership person for over 38, 40 years now. And as I got towards the end of my career, I had an experience which actually has changed how I view education and learning. And it was an experience of my elderly mother, who's now passed, who had to live in a care village, a care home. And what I saw there, I felt really ignited a new passion for me, which was about bringing young and older people together through learning. And to enable me to do that, I set up with a lovely colleague of mine called Liz Ludden, set up the charity Ready Generations. And I have to say, I'm now, as I said, at the end of my career, but I've never worked so hard in my life. So what I want to share with you is really probably about 7 years of research. So I really was keen to set up my charity as a research charity to actually work at the edges of education around innovation and system change. Because in my career, I worked as a senior civil servant with government looking at early years policy. And we always got caught up with the problem of structures and systems and sometimes forgot the important thing, which was what children were learning and how they perceived the system that we'd built for them. So that is where I'm coming from, really, and wanting to talk to you. And there on the front cover of the presentation are two of our members of our community. And there is nearly 100 years that separates those two learners, yet they are both learners and they both are best friends and are not seen without each other. So my work really challenges all the stereotypes about this is for children, this is for young people, this is for adults, this is for older people. My work is about stripping out all of those silos and saying education and learning to be successful is for everyone, from the moment of birth to the moment of death. So let's really try and understand what we mean by lifelong learning in an integrated and caring community. like tapas, really. Everything I've learned about you suggests that you're already on that journey. So if you can just flick through for me, Preethi, that would be wonderful. So our mission, you can read that for yourselves, and you can certainly have these slides and you can use them freely. But much of education, or what I hear about education, is always about preparing children for the next thing. Let's get you ready for your next adventure. Let's get you ready for school. Let's get you ready for big school. Let's get you ready for university. And I think very much in our mission, we are about what I call in my work, presencing. So if we are not present in our learning at the moment, we don't get the greatest joy from it, and we don't build the strongest relationships. So our work is very much about preparing children to be global citizens, to be able to operate in a complex world. But we do that not by formally preparing them. We do it by making sure every moment they spend with us is full of learning, full of ambition, full of curiosity, because then we believe the learning is internalized and the child becomes who they want to be as an operator in a global society. So our mission is not to prepare everyone, because what do we prepare older people for? Do we prepare them for death? We don't want that conversation. We want to prepare our older people to live the remainder of their lives, however long or short that might be, with joy and a sense of servitude, of servant leadership, of being able to offer something, even though they may be frail and poorly. They are still wise elders with something to offer for all of us. So our mission, in a word, is about living in the present to prepare for the future. So if you can just flick us on, Preethi, that would be wonderful.
Before we move forward, so I think I just need to comment here. You were
Okay.
right. This is so beautiful, and this is already so heartwarming. I love what you mentioned about being in the present and respecting the learner for who they are in the present. And we have a similar concept at Tapas called Astitva. Astitva is a Sanskrit word which means my being, who I am. So
yes.
it's about respecting the being in the moment, in that space. And that's one of the cornerstones of what we believe at Tapas. So I'm so happy that there's so much alignment in how we think. And just to introduce everybody, this is intergenerational learning. Sue has created this beautiful space of intergenerational learning where, like the photograph on the previous slide showed, it's the youngest with the oldest.
Yes. So what we actually have, and here's a picture of it. This is our main teaching space, which doesn't look like a classroom at all. But we have a care village. We work with a partner called Belong Care, and they have allowed us to use a space or spaces in their building where they have over 75 older people living, and 75% of those people are living with dementia or some form of frailty. So they're not always very well people, but they're very playful people who want to contribute and join in with us. And what we have is a very small nursery school on the ground floor of this massive care village. So it's very much a kind of European model. This has been done much more in other European countries, but actually started in Japan. And it started in Japan because of the aging demographic. People were reaching older age, and Japan had a problem with its aging population in terms of not having care homes to care for those older people. So they started integrating children and older people before any of us. So we're trailing on their heels, really, and learning from them. But what we know for sure is all of us, whether it's India, the USA, or the UK, or anywhere else, we all have a ticking time bomb around our aging population and how we care for them. So our to go back to the comment about living in the present, if you are working with older people who are living with dementia, then this moment is all they may have, because they may not be able to recall or remember something they did an hour ago or yesterday. But what we do know from our research is, in the same way as we all carry hormonal and endorphins around feeling good about things. So if we feel good about something, we have oxytocin and dopamine in our bloodstreams. What we know from our research is an older person who may have enjoyed an activity but not be able to remember it still gains the physical benefits from having a good hormonal levels that help them to enjoy the rest of their day. So in all of our work, it is about everybody in, nobody out, nobody is excluded. And we look at learning from beginning to end. And there we are with our music director, just enjoying some musical activity as part of our work together. So do you want to click us on, Preethi, please?
Yes, again, I'd like to add something here, if you don't mind, before moving forward. There's just so much to unpack in what you're saying that I feel that just another second on this. You spoke about how, the endorphins and the oxytocin, etc., is getting released, and the elderly are benefited from this, especially if that's the one moment that they have. I think you've also humanized learning in the early years. This is so real. This doesn't seem like I have to learn my ABCs and 1, 2, 3s as a preparation for something else. This is so real and so human. So I think that's very, very beautiful.
I think the other thing there really is that it's a relational model. So it doesn't rely on screen time. It doesn't rely on distance. It doesn't rely on othering. So knowing that you may have older people that live around you in your community, but you never meet them. So you're quite fearful perhaps of them, or quite shy. It actually is introducing children to the cycle of life from the beginning. So for example, sometimes we lose older people, they die. And our children are learning very, very important messages about and lessons about how life continues and how we can respect and act with integrity around difficult things like grief and loss and death, which we tend to, in modern societies, try to protect our young children from. We don't want them to experience that. They're not old enough. When actually we have found, again from research, so we have growing evidence of this, that children can lead the grieving process, that they are actually the sensible, matter-of-fact, organized people in terms of thinking about that and learning to manage grief and move on from grief respectfully. So I think, in this model, which is very relational and human, it is about everybody is a leader and everybody has power in the relationship. It's not adult and child and the power sits with the adult. We're very much concerned, again, from my early years work, about children as leaders of their own lives and their own kind of model of living. And I think that's really important if we're to develop global citizens that really understand their value in a world system, not a country system, a world system. So I think all of my work previously really has been about innovation and change. I find it very difficult to accept things as they are. I always think everything, however great it might be, there is always something that you can improve and make better. So I very much hate the word complacency. Sitting back and saying, yeah, we've done that, it's great, aren't we great? I can't accept that, because I believe at a time when the world is changing so rapidly for all of us and becoming so complex, and we really need to understand some very complex issues like democracy, freedom, voice, ownership, control, that just trying to fix things as they have been is not going to serve us well. It is a time when we as educators need to educate the next generation to be innovators, to be comfortable with change, and to be able to say boldly and bravely, this isn't working, it's time for a transformation. And a transformation means not fiddling around the edges, it means stopping, rethinking, and taking the risk of trying something new, which is what we've done and what we're getting so much kind of interest and impact from. So I would urge all of us listening today to think seriously about matters of vision and pace. Where is it we're wanting to go and we need to go? Why does it have to be different for our children? What is it about our older people that we need to think about more deeply and at a more granular level than we have done? Because if we don't, what we end up is service delivery models that don't actually meet what anybody wants. And we end up with this acute problem of we have to react because there's a massive problem, rather than a thoughtful process of what actually works for human beings of any age. Because, you know, we're not separated by chronological age so much as we are all human beings. We all have the same internal systems and the same internal needs around love, care, respect, being noticed. So age doesn't always have to be one of the things by which we organize things. So let's think differently about that.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting you mentioned about how innovation comes from being able to think intergenerational, right? And thinking about what problems somebody who's not similar to you, especially in terms of age, I think that just opens up the mind so beautifully. India has been traditionally a familial structure where the families stay together. Even after the child is 18, you don't see the child leaving home, because even though they're adults and they're not called children anymore, they continue to stay at home, and we continue to have joint families. But over the last couple of decades, this structure of the family has broken down. There are a lot more nuclear families in India, and we do see that it's just the parents and the child living together. So I'm curious to also delve into it once you're done with your presentation on what that might mean for us and how we would navigate that. But on to your next slide.
Okay, we'll hold that. And I think this goes in beautifully with what you've just said, really, because my co-founder and I had the real privilege in September last of going to work with McMaster University in Canada. And they have a centre for aging that they're looking at how we age across our life course from really pre-birth. From the moment of birth, we're aging. We don't want to think about it that way, but we are. We spent a lot of time with First Nation people learning about their culture. And they introduced us one day to the 7 grandfather teachings, which are used a lot in Ontario with First Nation peoples. And we brought those 7 teachings back, which were around the things in the hexagons. Those are the 7 grandfriend teachings, which are really about elders' wisdom and elders' capacity to guide and support young children and young people to really see the value of strong family, strong community, interrelationships, that we can't stand alone. We have to interact with others if we're going to succeed well. And all of this actually is based on love for one another, and love for our relationships, and our friendships and our family bonds. So we worked with our older people in our care village on these and created the 7 grandfriend teachings, which kind of have brought the teachings a little bit more up to date. And we could talk all day about those, and perhaps there's another time when we could talk in detail about them. But I do believe strongly that the most important grounding education for our children is about how we present ourselves to the world and how we show ourselves in terms of the openness of our hearts. And I think a lot of early education is heart work and head work. It's important that children learn, of course it is, but it's important that they understand how their behaviors impact other people and how, if we are to live peacefully, then it is important that I think about my behavior and how my behavior comes across and is perceived by others. So we talk a lot about human reciprocity. So I will gift you this in the hope that you will gift me something back. And that is how we build our relationship and our learning. So let me gift you what I've learned as an elder in the hope that you will gift me your wisdom and playfulness as a child back. And I think this idea, this concept of reciprocity, of gifting, is really important in our education model. So we don't really often talk about receiving gifts in education. We talk about learning, schemes of work, curriculum models, but we don't talk about the very gentleness of gifting learning. And that's what we do with our Grandfriend teachings, that we really say, you may be an older person that is living in a care village and you think your life is over. But it's not, because we really need you to share your wisdom that you have built over your life course. So we find that many older people, this gives them another lease of life. They feel responsible for something, and they really want to give to children. I haven't found an older person that doesn't want to gift their wisdom and knowledge to a child. It's a beautiful exchange. But the child gives them many things back too.
Absolutely. I'm just coming out of this conversation with Jenny Anderson about disengagement in teenage. And I think one of the things we did discuss was about engagement through reciprocity and through conversations. And it's interesting that you're bringing that up as well, because I think today's day and age where parents are so swarmed by a gadget or a screen taking over parenting, and bringing back that human connection right in the place of learning, and not just in an instructional manner, but in a reciprocal manner where you're giving gifts and receiving gifts. That's just beautiful. So I think it's just beautiful that you brought that up.
I think the other interesting thing I have learned in my long career is that we have to be careful about the word innovation, because nothing is ever new. It may be slightly different, but it's very rare that something is completely new. And all of our work is based on the work of Friedrich Froebel. And Froebel was born in 1782 in Germany. So he is centuries old in terms of his wisdom. You may have heard of Montessori nurseries. Well, Montessori modeled her work on the work of Friedrich Froebel. And it was Froebel that introduced the concept of kindergarten, children's gardens. And what he basically said was, after observing very many young children, and he had to sit and observe them and write everything down in those days. And what he said, which rings so true today, still after all these years, is that children need three things. They need adults who love them and nurture them. They need people to talk to, and they need to understand their spirituality and their place in the world in terms of nature and access to the whole world, all that the world has to offer in its richness. And I think in our model, we're not limiting a children's access to adults by one teacher, one class. We're saying, here are 70 older people. You can engage with those. You've got 70 extra people to talk to. And what we found for our youth, because we work with teenagers quite a lot, is teenagers really value an older adult who will sit like you might with your grandma or your granddad and just let the world go by, just having a gentle conversation that may raise all sorts of issues. And what I always say when people come to see our setting and they say, there's so much going on, different things, I say, well, it is a bit like going to see your grandparents. If you go to visit your grandparents, they don't say to you, oh, it's 9:30, you must do your maths with me now. Oh, it's 10:30, it's time for a break. We must do our language work after break. Your grandma or your granddad, let's bake. Let's make some bread. Let's go outside. Let's go for a walk. And I think that's what our young people, particularly teenagers, have missed in a curriculum in the UK that has become very regimented. They really value the freedom of, let's just see where this conversation goes. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we've really learned, if we move on to the next slide, that everybody is unique. And uniqueness is one of the things that we actually all have in common. So let's all build from our uniqueness. And to understand the uniqueness of another takes time, not time over a screen. So it's lovely to meet you this way, but we would be having a different engagement if we could physically see each other, reach each other, touch each other, embrace each other in a very different way. So I think when we are trying to learn, we must not forget the importance of human connection goes beyond cognitive connection. Yes. So for many babies, human connection is very sensory. It's about touch, feel, hugs, embraces. That's very much the same for older people living with dementia. And very often our older people say, there's no need to talk today. Please just sit with me and just stroke my hand. And to see a child do that for an older person and a child recognize that that's what the older person needs at that moment in time, I think is hugely sophisticated learning for young children. And when we were recently Ofsteded, we had our inspection, which is very scary time. But the inspector, who was an early years expert, had never seen young children with such empathy. She was quite blown away by the fact that the children intuitively saw and were able to understand what the older person was asking for at a particular moment in time. So I think that's incredibly powerful, that children are able to recognize the uniqueness of somebody else. That's an incredible concept. So if we just move on a little bit. So you set up something amazing in Tapas, and I would really love to see it. It just sounds amazing. But I'm sure as you've been on your journey, you have had, and I call them the negative people that say, really, this can't be done. This really cannot be done. We don't do it this way in the UK or in India or wherever. There's no money. There's no money to do this. And do you know what? I've learned not to listen to them at all. So we started our work with very little money, but massive ambition. And people found us. And so it really can be done. And my kind of desire is to really change the way we think about how we provide education. So do we need to build more schools in the future? Is the school concept dead and gone? Is the concept of a care village or somewhere to put all your older people, is that a thing of the past? I'd like to say it is. And I would like to say, let's never build a building, a physical space in the way we've built it before. Let's build it with a very different mindset that takes out all of the silos, that says, oh, you're a child with disabilities, you go over there. You're a child, a baby, you go over there. You're a teenager, you go over there. Why? when we're all lifelong learners. So I quite like the words I've put on the left-hand side of the slide there, which don't sound like education speak. We want you to unleash your inner explorer. We want you to be dazzled by amazing experiences. I actually stole some of those words from the marketing for a round the world cruise ship. And I thought, if they're marketing an offer to wealthy people who have the money to go around the world on a beautiful boat, then they must know that that works. And if that's good enough for those people, then it should be good enough for our children and our older people too. So I want to say nothing cannot be done. Everything can be really done. And there's a little picture of some of our older people and their little ones only last week, actually, feeling very proud of ourselves. But the space that we create is very important. So I know at Tapas you place a great emphasis on the learning environment. In a way, we look at spaces, any space, not as a classroom or a learning environment, but as a gathering space and learning environment. So what is it that makes this a beautiful gathering space? Whether that's outdoors, indoors, whether that's in a care village or a school. What is it that is attractive for everyone in this space? And how do we bring beauty into that space? So when we are planning environments, things of beauty matter. So how we try and plan it is around every corner is a provocation of beauty. It may be a statue, it may be a painting, it may be a plant, it may be a flower, it may be a tree, it may be a chair, but it is something that makes you stop and have a conversation because it's a beautiful thing. And, from that comes learning. And when you have provocative learning, it inspires curiosity. And then the ownership of the learning sits in the right place. It sits with the person experiencing the experience, not the teacher trying to drill children to understand something.
Absolutely.
So, provocations and beautiful things are very important. And sometimes our trustees say to us, why have you spent all that money on a statue? Well, it's because it's a beautiful thing and it will have more value than some textbooks.
Yeah.
And I'm being seriously provocative now because I think, it's important to really challenge our thinking about we must have certain things if we're going to have a quality education.
Yes.
So
many things that you said, how much I agree. In terms of space design, like you might have seen, we realized early on that we did not want our space we call it our temple of learning, to look and feel like something that's not attractive, number one, something that would make the child feel dull and depressed. And so we wanted to hear from the students, from the learners themselves as to what they wanted their space to look like. And then we took these insights and we've created this beautiful space, which you enter in, you feel like it. Yeah, this is where I belong, right? So I think we're so close to nature. Our entire research showed, and 85% of the respondents to this survey that we did spoke about wanting to do more with nature. And that was such a simple thing that we in schools hadn't considered. So our campus is designed around that. And I could go on and on, but that just resonated with me so much. And I'm going to think and go back and look at how we can include more intergenerational learning in our campus. So this is so much provocation for me right now.
I think the environment issue, it's a whole nother seminar really, but just to pick up on a few points that are really important. When we're working with older people living with dementia, they very often can become overwhelmed by too much in the environment, in the same way as a child living with autism. may
Right.
find a particular environment overwhelming. So actually we strip back. So we have very little on the walls. We are currently researching air quality in our environment, which is an issue certainly for you in your Indian cities, I believe. But we only use certain varnishes and glues on furniture, because what we know is certain glues and varnishes give off toxins, particularly furniture made with MDF, which is just coated, veneered wood rather than solid wood. And what we know is that really is not good for children's brain development, but equally is not good for people who are losing their brain capacity. So, the importance of choosing the correct furniture and fittings. So lighting is a massive thing for us. We are very clear that we need to change the mood of rooms by lighting. So uplifters, downlifters, spotlights, but no strip lighting, which is very harsh. And also, in terms of sustainability, we don't use plastic at all. So we don't have any red, blue, yellow plastic. It doesn't look like you would expect a children's kindergarten to look. It looks very kind of, in Scandinavian terms, very huggy, very natural. So we bring nature in with biophilic design as well. So we bring lots of plant life into the class, into the learning spaces as well. So biophilic design, bringing nature indoors through, natural walls and things, plant walls, is really, really important to think about.
I think I can check all the things that you said and say, yes, they exist in Tapas. So we'll have another conversation after this for that.
Brilliant. So click us on again. And I think we're nearly at the end now. Again, we can talk, at another time. But it may sound that I'm a bit free and easy. We do what we want. And I wouldn't want you to think that, because we absolutely don't. Education needs to be structured. And we have a framework called our Mirrored Care and Learning Framework that we use to deliver our curriculum and to assess and monitor our curriculum. The green one at the top, Domain 1, there are 6 domains. Domain 1 is basically what we've been talking about so far. If you don't see me, if you don't hear my voice and you don't know me, then I can't learn. So if number 1 isn't in place, nothing else really happens. But I just wanted to alert you to number 2. And I've got a little picture here. I don't know if you can see this little bird, but I just wanted to explain Sankofa, if you can see it. There we go. So the Sankofa bird is the national bird of Ghana in Africa. And the Sankofa bird, in their culture, has a little egg in its mouth. And what the bird is saying is, I am the elder and I'm holding the child. There's the little egg in the bird's mouth. And I'm reaching back over my back and I'm actually saying, little child, for you to be able to go forwards, you have to understand where you came from. So when I challenge kind of the use of screens and computers with children, some of our children seem to get their culture from TikTok now. This is my tribe. This is who I belong to. When what we're trying to say is we have to understand our background and our culture and our heritage from a much more respectable position, which is let the elder teach us from whence we came to enable us to understand where we're going. So the rest really makes sense, but I just wanted to explain really to you the Sankofa leadership part of it, and we could talk at length about that at another time. So,
sure. And that's beautiful, right? I think when you spoke about knowing where you come from, I think I'm particularly seeing this in the Indian context, that we have such a beautiful indigenous knowledge system that we are forgetting and probably forgotten in many ways, and we are trying to ape the West so much so that we are forgetting who we are. And I think this is very real, and then I think it's just if we don't know who we are, how are we, like you said, going to get to where we want to be? So just having the grounding in our roots uh, gives us so much more purpose in life and identity, which will help us get better. So thank you so much for bringing that up, and I completely resonate with that.
And we have learned so much from cultures like yours. And I think living in the Western world now, what we understand is we have lost that. We have gone too fast, too quickly. And now old people are disrespected in communities. Sometimes they can be a nuisance. You know, they're costly. Their care is costly. And, you know, we're not seeing their incredible continued contribution to maintaining our vision and our values and, you know, our moral compass, really, in terms of where we want to go as a country or a society. And I think, you know, you're on the cusp of that. And it's really important that our understanding of culture and heritage is, you know, goes with us as we move forwards, and we don't lose it to something of less value.
Absolutely.
So I think, are we nearly at the end of, have we got one more slide? Yes. So I love this picture here that of the older people riding the bike. And I wanted to tell you the story behind that picture because it's important. Doreen and Ralph. Doreen is 89. There she is with her helmet on, riding her bike. And it's her son, Ralph, who's 70. And Ralph has some learning difficulties. And what we are finding now as we move through and medicine is improving is we're facing different kinds of issues that we've perhaps not faced before, where we have elderly people who are still caring for a child that's an adult, but may have disabilities that require support. So we are, for example, we are seeing adults with Down syndrome who are also living with early onset dementias. So we're seeing combinations of needs we've not met in society before that we need to start thinking about how we are going to manage those. And it will be the same for every society, because medicine is enabling us to keep people alive that may not have survived so long previously. So, you know, the question is, what is our local moral world? What is it we want, not for our whole nation of India, but what do we want for our communities, and how can we spread from the grassroots out to the bigger world? Rather than looking at the big issues and drilling down, let's start with the things that really resonate for our communities. And then this idea that, you know, we need to live in real life. Sometimes the screen life takes us to a world that is not real, and our children are getting confused with what is real and what is not real. And that's really something that we as previous generations haven't had to struggle with. But our children need to know is real relationships are where real life is. And that means engaging with your community across all ages, not just seeing your world with your blinkers on.
Yeah.
And then just going back to this idea that, you know, presencing in time is where the transformation happens. And that presencing is also linked to a much slower pedagogy. So we tend to race our children through things. You know, get in the car, get out of the car, we're going to school, we're home from school, do your homework, get ready for bed. We rush through our lives because modern living is fast paced. And I think what we're saying is when you work intergenerationally, one thing older people will not do is be rushed. They will not be rushed. So they naturally make us all slow down. And it's the nuggets of magic happen in the slow pedagogy, the moments we give to really getting in the flow of the moment and really, really developing our learning from that little nugget of magic. So those are my 3 takeaways as being really, really important. And then I think, did we have a little video?
Yes, would you like me to play the video now?
Yes, I just thought after me talking away so much to you, it was really important for you to see this. For International Day of Play, we produced a very short video of adults and older adults and children playing together. And I wanted to just say to you that you would think, I would say, as an early years educator, our children are so playful. Yes, they are, but so are older people. And older people's play can be very naughty. Sometimes they're quite a handful to manage because, children we can manage. Older people, when they want to be disruptive, are great disruptors. And I love that because, again, that's where new learning comes from, disrupting the normal lines of learning. So let's just have a look at some of our disruptors. I'm hoping this will play.
At Ready Generations, we love to play. We believe everyone, whatever their age, can enjoy being playful, imaginative, and curious. A playful, creative mindset is often thought of as a feature of our earliest years, our childhood. We believe it's a treasure throughout life and should be cherished. We just need the right conditions and encouragement from those around us to play and be playful. Freedom to explore and test things out in safe and nurturing spaces is such a basic human need. Play is timeless and associated with laughter, fulfillment, fun, and happiness. It's the biggest endorphin releaser on the planet, too. Play helps us to understand ourselves better, feel connected to our friends, and able to make a real contribution to our communities. Play supports us to explore, investigate, check things out, and solve problems without any pressure to always be right or do what might be expected. Play helps us all to focus, relax, and find our flow. It can be spontaneous and full of surprises. It's fluid, unpredictable, and lets us take sensible risks. This helps us to grow and move forwards. Across our intergenerational communities, play is central to everything we do. We want everyone to be curious and excited about the world and what it has to offer. This means taking part, using time well to wonder about things, and combine our knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes in new and inspiring ways. Play is expansive, opening us up to new possibilities that are tempting and enticing. Play is universal and inviting. We hope you're excited by the potential of play. Let it lead you towards new adventures for your whole being, mind, body, and spirit. We do, and life feels great.
Oh, that was just so beautiful. Seeing that in action.
So yes, we're very proud of kind of what we've achieved, and that doesn't give you a full picture of the environment, but I just thought it would be nice to end on that, in that it just gives you a picture of how learning can be a little bit different when older people are around.
Absolutely, and I think that's the provocation that we are going to take away today as to how we can make that possible, because there's so many questions around where learning is headed. What are we really educating learners for, or educating students today for? But if this is the kind of learning that we are able to give them, we are making the world a better place. We are making them empathetic, and I think it's such a caring world, and I don't feel so lost anymore. I think this is a beautiful world that you're creating. So, that's lovely. But that's all the time that we have today. We've overshot by a little bit.
I'm
I know
sorry.
Late. No, we started a bit late, but that's all we have the time for. And for all the viewers who are going to watch this live, as well as the recorded versions, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Sue, please do leave it in the comments. We will make sure that it reaches her, and we will reach her responses to you. Sue, is that all right?
Yes, absolutely perfect. And everybody, whoever would like to come over, you would be most welcome to come and spend some time with us. We would love to introduce you to this way of working.
It sounds fantastic. Thank you so much for that invitation, and I hopefully one day will soon take it up.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Have a
Sue.
lovely day.
You too. We'll continue our conversation post this. Thank you so much
Yes.
for doing this for us. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been a pleasure to be with you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.